But let me begin by just saying a few words about Jung and Richard Wilhelm. The film that you can watch, if you haven't already watched, I strongly encourage you to watch Bettina Wilhelm's film about the life and work of Richard Wilhelm. And that will explain a lot about his life, his history, and what his work in China meant to him. Richard Wilhelm was a Protestant missionary to China from 1899 to 1920, basically lived for some 20 years in China, started his family there, started a school there, was very active in the missions, although he says, and Bettina quotes this very prominently in her film, that he didn't baptize a single Chinese during his 20 years of missionary work in China, of which he was very proud. Because his idea really was to relate to Chinese culture and not to try to impose a foreign culture on them, and try to learn from them and bring back to the West something that he had gathered from his studies of traditional Chinese culture. Jung met him in the early 1920s, we think, at a meeting of the School of Wisdom in Darmstadt, Germany. Count von Kaiserling had set up this school. Many illustrious and well-known European intellectuals and cultural figures went there, gave lectures, met each other. And Jung and Wilhelm were both in residence there in the early 1920s, and that's probably where Jung first met Richard Wilhelm, got to know him. And I think their meeting was a very, very electrifying one for Jung, at least, and I'm sure for Richard Wilhelm too. I think they were soul brothers in a sense, and they recognized that almost immediately.
So the books were there in our house, but during all my young life I thought, well, what does it have to do with my life? And I couldn't really connect to it. And then, maybe thanks to a crisis and getting older, I got really interested. I got interested to understand more of not only the I Ching, but more about life, and found out that there was a member of my family who had asked the big questions of life. And this was, I felt, his motor. Even before he went out to China, he said, I want to know why everything is as it is. So with a very open mind, and he wanted to get out of any narrow thinking countries, and so he came there with his curiosity, and he always was a person who was not conventional. I mean, he was, by then he finished his studies in theology, he was a vicar, he was a pastor, but he never really related to the conventional church, not even the Protestant one. But he had a deep belief in him from the very beginning, just always tried to find his own ways. And when he came to China and learned Chinese and encountered the Chinese thinking, I had the feeling it felt familiar to him. Because it was asking questions and coming back to very basic and near simple might be the wrong word, but like a child would ask a question and come to answers by really looking at things. I mean, this is also in a way like an early scientific mind.
Then he goes on to say, to me, the greatest of his achievements is his translation of and commentary on the I Ching. So Wilhelm translated a lot of texts from the Chinese, Lao Tzu and Confucius and all the, many of the great classics. But Jung felt that the greatest achievement was the translation of the I Ching. And that's what he really fixed on. And Jung felt very strongly that the I Ching should also be translated into English. Wilhelm translated it into German. Jung had a close colleague who had worked with him also on trying to put the text of the Red Book together into a publishable form, actually. Cary Baynes was her name. And she worked with the text of the Red Book with Jung for a number of years, and she was an excellent translator. He asked her to turn her attention to the I Ching. It took her about 20 years to produce an English translation of the I Ching. It was published around 1950, and Jung wrote a foreword to it. And it became, in the course of time, especially after the 1960s, a famous worldwide bestseller. And so it was through this channel, from this comet-like meeting, Wilhelm coming from China, meeting Jung, and Jung helping that book, the I Ching, into the global conversation that's going on in the world today, that made the I Ching available to all of us, and is widely used by Jungians and by people who just have an interest in synchronicity or ancient philosophy. It's a wonderful book just to open up and read a few pages. And it is this combination, and it's been criticized for that Wilhelm put himself into it. But he didn't put himself into it as an alien force. He put himself into it as a mother puts herself into a child.
Jung writes the introduction to Richard Wilhelm's translation of The Secret of the Golden Flower. The book is about the immortal inner essence, the golden flower, which can only be developed by special meditation techniques. One of the mandalas Jung shows in his foreword without mentioning his name is the Golden Castle.
In the book of the Yellow Castle, it says, "In the inch-wide field of the foot-wide house, life can be ordered. What else could it be but the heavenly heart? The Confucians call it the center of emptiness. The Buddhists call it the terrace of liveliness. The Taoists, the land of the ancestors, or Yellow Castle."
So now we can see it's thinking about what is golden flower. Golden flower is the symbol of light, of the universe, universal essence. What is the secret? The book teaches how to return to the life of origin, the light of universe. So golden flower is a light, heavenly light, or Tao, in Chinese way of saying universal wisdom, and also from Jung's term, mandala, self. What is golden flower? Golden flower is, I bring up this image. It looks like a Chinese painting and a lot of writing. It looks like a landscape, but actually it's not. This is a painting from 17th century. It's a body map. It's talking about Taoist concept about the inner world of the human being. We mentioned about Taoist ontology before, about from Wuji to Taiji to yin and yang to 5 elements, heaven and earth, then come into all the living beings. In here, Chinese also believe duality, but this duality is we call soft duality. The two opposite parts are not really conflict each other, rather interact, and they are part of each other. I didn't bring up the image, but I think most of people know the Tai Chi, half white, half black, and each color have it. The white part have black dot, and the black part have a white dot. It's saying about this concept, soft duality. And also this book mentioned about it, this two-world view. It's about there's two worlds, world of origin and the world of consciousness.
Depth psychology offers a way of retrieving the ancient mythological and religious contents and connecting modern man again to the depths of the psyche. That's Jung's genius. That's his contribution. And he saw Wilhelm bringing him to the West in a version that he could digest and he could work with, the contents that he needed to transform Western thinking and Western mentality into something more whole, something less one-sided, not just left brain, but left-right brain, not just analytic, masculine thinking, but also the maternal mind, the feminine mind. Bring them both into being in a new form in modernity. Now, he says in his address to the memorial to Richard Wilhelm something very interesting. He uses a word that he also uses in a letter to Richard Wilhelm when he invites him to give a talk to the psychotherapists at Bad Nauheim in 1930. He says to Wilhelm in that letter, "I want you to come because I feel that what you bring us with your treasures from China will inoculate," he uses the word inoculate, will inoculate the Western mind against a disease, against an infection. He uses the word inoculation. Now he uses that word again in this memorial address, where he says, this is paragraph 78 of volume 15, he says, Richard Wilhelm has bequeathed to us a task whose magnitude we can only surmise at present, but cannot fully apprehend. Something huge he's brought us, a task. Anyone who, like myself, has had the rare good fortune to experience, in association with Wilhelm, the divinatory power of the I Ching cannot remain ignorant of the fact that here we have an Archimedean point from which our Western attitude of mind could be lifted off its foundations. And that's what he's looking for, something to treat this Western attitude of mind to something, a fundamental remedy. It is no small service to have given us, as Wilhelm did, such a comprehensive and richly endowed picture of a foreign culture. What is even more important is that he has inoculated us. He has inoculated us with the living germ of the Chinese spirit, capable of working a fundamental change in our view of the world.